The cruel laughter of her stepmother, Veronica, and her step-siblings, Tiffany and Dylan, still echoed in Harper Reed's ears. How could they be so heartless? She watched, helpless, as they systematically dismantled her beloved father, Thomas Reed's entire legacy. Every magnificent estate, every thriving company, snatched away, leaving her with absolutely nothing but a decaying shack in the middle of nowhere. For agonizing months, she endured their taunts, the town's whispers, barely surviving while they flaunted their ill-gotten fortune. But deep within that forgotten, broken land, Harper was about to stumble upon a secret her father had desperately sought. A hidden truth he'd almost missed, a winding path, a long-abandoned mine, and a breathtaking shimmer in the stone that would transform her cruel punishment into unimaginable power, silencing their mocking laughter forever. The will reading was a suffocating affair, held in a room heavy with the scent of antique wood and Veronica's expensive perfume. A colossal mahogany table, a relentless ticking clock, and dust motes dancing in the sunbeams, seemingly eager to escape. Harper clutched her hands tightly in her lap, her thumb absently tracing the worn edge of a cheap silver ring until her skin warmed with the friction. Across from her, Veronica, with her impeccably styled hair and a smile like polished pearls, rested a perfectly manicured finger on a legal pad, as if she'd already claimed the future. Tiffany and Dylan, her step-siblings, exchanged a knowing glance that screamed, "Finally, it's ours." The lawyer cleared his throat, the rustle of papers a hushed prelude to her ruin. Names of properties, of companies, were spoken, each pronouncement a heavy gavel blow. Dylan inherited the entire logistics firm. Tiffany received 2 blocks of prime rental properties and a luxurious downtown condo. And Veronica? She was granted the controlling interests, supposedly to stabilize the vast estate. Brick by brick, word by slow, deliberate word, her father's empire was carved up before her eyes. The room hummed with forced smiles and hollow gratitude. Then came the dreaded pause, the lawyer's shifty blink. And to Harper Reed, he announced, his voice sickeningly smooth, his eyes carefully avoiding hers, the Riverbend farmhouse, way out in the country. Title transferred, free and clear, a sharp cough into a silk sleeve. The old shack, a relative dared to whisper, barely concealed. The phrase hung in the air, a wool smoke cloud. Tiffany's lip curled in disgust. Dylan's phone screen illuminated his triumphant grin. Veronica, adjusting her diamond earrings, looked utterly satisfied. The lawyer's gold pen tapped once, twice. Harper swallowed, the cheap ring digging a tiny crescent into her palm. A flurry of gossip erupted around her chair. Her dad left her a charity case. She'll sell it for scraps. A farmhouse in this century? A soft, condescending snicker. Good luck, girl. Oh, the audacity. Harper refused to look up. She felt the crushing weight of their laughter, the finality of the decision. The entire room turning its back on her, a sharp pain in her chest. Yet something ancient and unyielding stirred within her. A vivid memory of her father, Thomas, unrolling a sprawling map on their dining table when she was just 13. His voice gentle, urging her to listen for the ground's quiet stories. He had bought land not with logic but with an almost spiritual instinct. Sometimes it paid off handsomely, sometimes it bled him dry. Towards the end, the payments simply stopped. People whispered about bad luck, but Harper had seen the crushing exhaustion in his shoulders. A quick shuffle of papers and it was over. Chairs scraped, the scent of expensive perfume wafted as everyone rose, practiced in the art of making a swift exit. Veronica glided close enough for her voice to carry, without ever truly facing Harper. At least it has a roof, she purred to no one, to everyone. Tiffany giggled softly. Dylan mumbled, "What's up, little house on the prairie?" and made a ridiculous barn door gesture with his phone before pocketing it. Harper breathed through the searing sting, slow in, slow out. If she spoke now, she'd unleash words she could never retract. So she remained silent. She signed where they pointed, her name a tight, small script, her hand miraculously steady, even as her knees trembled beneath the table. The lawyer's pen clicked delicately back into its sheath. For a fleeting second, his gaze met hers. Was that a flicker of guilt, or just weary fatigue? And then it vanished. On her way out, 2 relatives paused by the staircase, their voices hushed behind their perfect teeth. "She'll come crawling back in a week," Not even. That place is falling apart. A soft, cruel laugh serves her right. Veronica handled it so well. Why were they so vile? Outside, the midday heat shimmered off the stone steps, distorting the air. The city's noise was a bright, indifferent symphony. Blaring horns, a groaning bus, a man hawking bottled water. Harper stood bathed in it, letting the cacophony wash the stale legal air from her skin. She pulled the official envelope from her tote bag, her thumb tracing the deed. The paper felt thin, yet the weight of what it represented was immense. A farmhouse. Everyone had dismissed as a cruel joke. Okay, cool. Breathe, she whispered to herself. She hailed a rideshare to a storage unit, where her entire world was compressed into 8 cardboard boxes and a lone, thrifted lamp. The driver, thankfully, asked no questions. At a red light, a kid on a bike peered through the window, offering a small, encouraging nod, as if to say, "Keep going." Her stomach twisted, a hollow ache of hunger mixed with fierce pride. By sunset, the city had spat her out, past the endless 24-hour diners, past the tire shops. The road narrowed, then opened wide, the air transforming from hot metal to dry grass. The sky expanded, vast and indifferent, the radio crackling with static and a distant preacher's voice. Then nothing but the whisper of wind beneath the car's frame. Harper's fingers tightened around the steering wheel with every rattle. She murmured to herself, not quite a prayer, more a stubborn promise. "I'm fine, we're fine, we'll figure it out." Riverbend announced itself with a dilapidated wooden sign and a gravel road that hadn't known love in generations. The farmhouse waited at the end of it all, 2 stories of tired bones and flaking paint, its front porch tilting precariously like a shoulder burdened by too much. Weeds choked the steps. A rusted weather vane turned lazily, squeaking with each half rotation. From somewhere inside, a loose shutter clapped, then settled. The air carried the scent of dry hay, old rain, and the faint melancholic sweetness of something long past. She killed the engine, sinking into the deepening quiet, letting the crickets stitch the edges of the field to the house. Her heartbeat slowed, matching the rhythm of the place. Lights from the nearest neighbor blinked far off. 1, 2, then vanished behind a line of trees. No city glow here, just raw, honest darkness rolling in. She should have cried, shouldn't she? But she didn't. Instead, she did the smallest, most defiant thing. She reached for the door handle. The metal was warm from the day. Stepping out, gravel crunched under her sneakers, dust rising and floating, catching the last slivers of light. On the porch, her palms slid over the splintered railing. She felt the echoes of countless hands that had done the same. A silent history. The key protested, then turned after 2 stubborn tries. Hinges groaned in complaint, then finally gave way. Inside, the air was cooler, damp around the edges. Her footsteps found a rhythm. Would pause, would pause. A moth tapped the window, once, twice. In the kitchen, a metal sink offered a tired gleam. Someone had left a faded calendar on the wall. June of a year that suddenly felt like 3 lifetimes ago. She opened a cabinet, empty. She closed it softly. Every movement was small, deliberate, like approaching a wild animal you didn't want to spook. On the counter, she placed her ring, just for a second to let her fingers breathe. She flexed them, a micro movement, a tiny relief. Then she picked it back up, slid it on, and exhaled. "Okay," she murmured, not loud, not weak, just utterly present. "Okay." Back on the porch, night had truly settled, asserting its authority. The fields darkened, merging into one wide, breathing shape. Somewhere to her left, water made a patient, murmuring sound, perhaps a hidden creak in the reeds. In her mind, a map began to unfurl, the kind her father used to unroll with that familiar grin, the one that said, "Listen to the ground." She felt a pang of absurdity for remembering it now. And yet, there it was, as stubborn as her own heartbeat. They had laughed, hadn't they? Handed her a mere leftover. Fine. Let them laugh. In the cool night air, Harper straightened her shoulders, adjusted the sleeve of her thrifted jacket, and leaned on the railing until the old wood creaked under her weight. The farmhouse didn't feel like a joke at all. It felt like a beginning. Quiet, rough, and so wonderfully real. Morning arrived slowly at Riverbend. Thin sunlight slipped through the torn curtains, painting stripes of gold across the dusty floorboards. Harper awoke on a sagging couch she dragged to the center of the living room, its springs groaning with her every movement. She rubbed her eyes, the scent of old wood and mildew clinging to her hoodie. Her phone buzzed, weak signals struggling to connect. The messages were just as predictable as they were cruel. Tiffany, hope the farm rats don't eat you alive. Dylan, a photo of him leaning against a gleaming luxury car, captioned, comfort looks good on me. Veronica said nothing, her silence cutting deeper than their combined noise. Harper read them, locked the screen, and let a hollow, bitter laugh escape her throat. Wow, she muttered. You really went all in, huh? She shoved the phone under a pillow. No point giving her words any air. She explored the house room by room, her feet sinking into warped floorboards. Every door shrieked like it hadn't been opened in decades. Cobwebs draped intricate lace across the corners, and the kitchen faucet dripped with its own languid rhythm. Tap, pause, tap. She opened the fridge out of habit, then laughed at the stale air that pushed back. In the overgrown backyard, weeds towered taller than her knees, and broken tools lay rusting where someone had dropped them decades ago. For lunch, she ate bread and peanut butter from a gas station, crumbs clinging to her sleeve as she leaned against the porch rail, her eyes scanning the endless fields. Crickets worked overtime. Cicadas groaned, the air heavy with the weight of late summer. She tapped the empty jar with her thumb. Oh, Dad, if you could only see me now. Of course, bystanders talked. In a small town, whispers traveled faster than any broadband connection. At the feed store, a woman behind the counter tilted her head. You're the Reed girl, aren't you? The one stuck with Riverbend? The man waiting in line snickered under his breath. Yep, Harper answered evenly, sliding cash across the counter for a bag of seeds. Well, the woman continued, her voice syrupy sweet but sharp as a razor. Good luck with that place. Folks have been calling it a lost cause since what, 2 owners ago? The man behind her leaned in just enough. Yeah, heard the roof's a hazard. Hope you got insurance. He chuckled softly, as if sharing a private joke with himself. Harper offered a small, tight smile, picked up her bag of seeds, and walked out without a single word of retort. Outside, the air smelled of fresh hay from a nearby truck, cleaner, purer than the inside of that store. She took a deep breath. Let them laugh, she thought. I'll make this work. Just watch me. She began to plant. First awkwardly, then with a growing steadiness. Her rows were crooked at first, her hands blistering, soil stubbornly caked under nails she couldn't scrub clean. The relentless sun hammered her shoulders until her shirt grew heavy with sweat. She watered with buckets, painstakingly carried from the creek, each trip a test of balance on the rocky path. At night, she collapsed onto that sagging couch, muscles buzzing, listening to the old farmhouse sigh in rhythm with her. Weeks rolled into a month. Tiny green sprigs emerged, fragile yet defiant against the dark earth. She knelt close, brushing soil from her knees, watching them sway gently in the breeze. Something within her chest shifted, small but undeniably solid. Yet, some nights the silence was still too loud. She'd sit on the porch, hugging her knees, the headlights of an occasional passing truck flashing across her face. From across the fields, faint voices drifting from neighbors gathered outside with their radios. She caught snippets. That poor girl, what on earth does she think she's doing out there? All her daddy's money went to the others. She's just playing farmer. Each word was a sting, but she remained silent. She'd dig her nails into the rough wood of the railing until the pain steadied her. Then she'd whisper to herself, keep going, just keep going. The farmhouse gradually became her silent partner. She patched holes with scavenged boards from the shed, sealed windows with plastic sheeting, and dragged a mattress upstairs so she wouldn't hear mice skittering at night. She lit candles when storms inevitably cut the weak power, their flickering glow warming the ancient walls just enough to feel alive. One afternoon, rain lashed down, sudden and violent. Water streamed off the roof, carving rivulets in the soft soil. She stood in it, mud tugging at her boots, arms outstretched, letting the cold soak her to the bone. She laughed, a raw, breathless sound. Still here, she shouted to the storm. Still here, you can't break me. Riverbend, it turned out, held secrets. Out back, where rampant weeds strangled an old well cover, the ground dipped strangely. She noticed it one evening while hauling water, the light fading into hues of orange. A patch of earth felt inexplicably hollow under her boot, the sound sharp, almost like knocking on a hidden door. She crouched, pressing her palm flat against the soil. It trembled slightly, as if something vast beneath shifted with her weight. Her father's old words echoed in her mind like a benevolent ghost. Listen for the ground's quiet stories. She sat back on her heels, her heart ticking faster, the air around her suddenly thick with anticipation. Fireflies blinked erratically in the field, their rhythm out of sync, like tiny hesitant messengers. She whispered into the deepening dusk, "What are you hiding, old man? What secrets did you leave me?" That night, sleep was impossible. The sagging couch felt too small, her skin too alive with a restless energy. She stared at the ceiling beams until dawn painted them a pale, hopeful gray. By morning, one truth was crystal clear. Riverbend was more than just crumbling wood and overgrown weeds. It had deeper bones, ancient secrets she was only just beginning to uncover. And maybe, just maybe, her father had left her a far greater inheritance than anyone, especially her greedy family, had ever imagined. It began with a shovel, not some shiny new tool from a hardware store, but the old, dented one she'd unearthed from the shed, its wooden handle cracked like tired knuckles. Harper tested the earth where her boot had struck hollow. The shovel cut deeper than she expected, the soil surprisingly loose, almost eager to give way. Each scoop carried the rich scent of damp clay, heavy and ancient. Hours blurred. Sweat traced her jaw, dripping into the dirt. She pushed on as the sun dipped lower, painting the fields in shades of bronze and crimson. At last, clang, the metal edge struck something harder than stone. She froze, breath hitched, listening intently. A hollow echo rose up, faint but undeniably present. She dug faster, her pulse throbbing in her throat, until her hands cleared a half-rotted wooden hatch. The hinges resisted, swollen with years of silent neglect. She pried with a rusted crowbar, until the wood groaned and split, showering her face with ancient dust. Below, darkness yawned, deep and cold. A chilling draft brushed her cheek, carrying the scent of rust and earth, a memory of something buried alive. She lowered her flashlight, its beam catching stone walls descending into an abyss of shadow. For a terrifying moment, fear held her captive. Alone, in the middle of nowhere, crouched over a gaping hole to God knows where. But then she thought of Veronica's sneering laugh, Tiffany's condescending smirk, Dylan's cruel barn door joke. Their voices, once debilitating, now fueled her resolve. She tied the flashlight securely to her wrist, slid her legs into the hatch, her boots scraping against the wood, then dropped down into the cool, embracing silence. The tunnel swallowed her whole. The walls were damp, the air thick with anticipation. Dust motes floated like forgotten stars in her beam. As the ground sloped, pulling her deeper into the earth's embrace, she trailed her fingers along the rough, ancient surface, grit grinding into her skin, her breath fogging in front of her like a faint mist in the cool underground air. She reached a cavern where the ceiling arched wide, a vast, echoing space. And there her flashlight beam froze, wooden supports, half-collapsed, pickaxes, abandoned and forgotten, metal buckets, rusted through, an old mine hidden away, left to decay. She touched the ancient wood, splinters breaking under her palm. This was her father's grand gamble, wasn't it? The very land he'd once sworn held untold treasure. Everyone had called him a fool. Perhaps he believed it himself, until the weight of failure had finally crushed him. Harper crouched, tracing the faint grooves in the dirt floor where ore carts once carried their precious loads. Her light caught something distinct, something extraordinary, stone flecked with a faint, mesmerizing shimmer. She brushed at it with her sleeve. The sparkle intensified, tiny veins glinting back at her. Gold dust, catching the light as if it had been waiting for her. Her throat tightened with a gasp. She laughed, a short, shaky sound that bounced off the cavern walls, a welcome echo in her solitude. She dug her nails into the wall, scraping loose a small fragment. The dust clung to her skin, metallic, sharp. For a long, silent moment she simply stared, then whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Wow, damn, Dad, you did it. Days blurred into weeks, each sunrise finding her back in the mine. Flashlight gripped tight, gloves on, mapping the labyrinthine tunnels with precise chalk lines. She discovered the exact spot where her father had stopped, mere feet from a colossal vein of ore, streaking through the stone like lightning frozen in time. He had been so incredibly close. She imagined him down here, his lantern dim, his shoulders slumped in defeat, just shy of the truth that would have changed everything. The town, of course, noticed her strange comings and goings. At the diner, two men leaned conspiratorially over their coffee. That Reed girl keeps hauling gear out there, one grumbled. She's just wasting her time. That place bled her old man dry. Another voice from behind the counter chimed in. Maybe she's crazy enough to keep digging. They all laughed, shaking their heads in collective pity and scorn. She heard them. She let them. Every smirk, every whispered insult fueled her arms as she swung the pickaxe, sparks flying with each powerful blow. Each heavy bucket of ore she hauled felt like another piece of their disbelief cracking, crumbling away. Then came the glorious day the wall finally gave way. Not with a sudden rush, but slowly, deliberately, as if the earth itself was yielding to her will. The pick struck, dust fell like rain, and the shimmer bled wider, brighter, blindingly undeniable. She pressed her forehead against the cool, damp stone, hot tears sliding down her grimy cheeks. She had found it, real, solid, unarguable. The ground had whispered, and she, Harper Reed, had listened. Back at the farmhouse, she carefully spread the precious fragments on the table. Candlelight caught their incredible shine, scattering tiny suns across the worn wood. She touched them gently, reverently, like the fragile bones of a long-held secret finally revealed. Her chest rose and fell with a steady, triumphant rhythm. They thought this place was my punishment, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. But this is my beginning. That night, lying awake, she didn't hear crickets or mice. Instead, she heard the roar of engines, the hum of machines, the rumble of trucks, the vibrant pulse of factories alive in her mind, all powered by the gold she had unearthed. She envisioned contracts signed, her name boldly emblazoned at the top, not hidden in small print at the bottom. She saw Veronica, Tiffany, and Dylan reading scandalous headlines with her face on them, their expressions of shock and disbelief. She smiled into the darkness, a small, dangerous, knowing smile. Riverbend was no longer just a broken house. It was a gateway, and she held the key. The mine didn't just give her gold, it gave her purpose, a reason to rise. At first, Harper hauled the heavy sacks herself, loading them into the back of a borrowed pickup truck. Her hands blistered, her back screamed in protest, but every arduous trip to the refinery was irrefutable proof. The gold was real, and it was hers. The first small payout barely covered the cost of new tools and groceries. Yet she pressed on, driven by the incandescent glow of possibility. Months melted into a year. The farmhouse, once sagging under decades of neglect, began its astonishing transformation. A new roof replaced the groaning, leaky one. Fresh, vibrant paint peeled away the years of shame. Out back, trucks rumbled. Contractors arrived, shaking their heads in bewildered awe at the young woman who had somehow conjured an entire industry out of a patch of wheat. A sign went up, Riverbend Mining Company. Locals, who once muttered, laughed, and rolled their eyes, now watched in stunned silence. Until the paychecks started coming, until jobs blossomed, until the very girl they once pitied signed their payslip. In town, the whispers at the diner shifted dramatically. Voices that once mocked, now softened with respect. She's hiring. Heard she's building offices by the highway. That old land really did have something. One older man grunted into his coffee, a wry smile playing on his lips. Guess the laugh's on us now, huh? Harper didn't boast. She simply worked. Contracts spread across her desk, demanding her attention. Meetings filled her calendar, each one a testament to her growing empire. She learned the immense weight of decisions, the razor's edge of risk. Every late night, signing papers by candlelight, she thought of her father's maps, his unwavering belief in the land. She was finishing what he started, only stronger, wiser. Meanwhile, the family that had so cruelly mocked her began to stumble. Veronica's polished empire started to crack, besieged by lawsuits, mounting debts, and whispers of gross mismanagement. Tiffany was forced to sell her downtown condo just to cover her loss. Dylan's shiny, expensive car was publicly repossessed outside a nightclub. The humiliating moment caught on a stranger's phone and shared until the entire town knew. They had inherited wealth without earning it, without understanding its true value. They had no roots, and without roots, fierce storms always tear you apart. The day finally arrived when Veronica, her designer heels sinking into the gravel drive of Riverbend, came to call. Harper stood on the porch, arms calmly folded, watching her stepmother approach the very farmhouse she had once dismissed as a joke. Veronica's smile was stretched thin, a desperate, painted mask. "You've done remarkably well," she purred, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Perhaps we could discuss opportunities, you and I." Harper didn't let her finish. She didn't need anger, nor did she crave revenge. She only needed the simple, unvarnished truth. She tilted her head, her eyes steady, unwavering. "Funny," Harper began, her voice calm but firm. "You laughed when you gave me this place. You thought it was worthless. But this house, this land, it gave me everything back. You kept the fortune, I kept the roots. And look who's still standing. Veronica. Look who's still standing." Behind Veronica, neighbors paused at the edge of the field, pretending to pick berries while avidly watching the scene unfold. One muttered to another, "Tables turned, huh?" The other chuckled, a deep, satisfied sound. Veronica's shoulders sagged. For once, she had no performance left to give. She turned and walked back the way she came, her shadow stretching long and defeated across the gravel. Inside, Harper sat at her desk, papers spread wide, gold samples glinting under the warm lamplight. She leaned back, exhaling slowly. The farmhouse creaked softly. As if in approval, she glanced at the window where the field stretched, rich, vibrant, and alive. Her father's words floated back to her. Listen to the ground's quiet stories. She had listened. And now, her story was not quiet at all. The farmhouse they mocked had become her empire. The mine they forgot had become her legacy. And the family who laughed, they had become the ultimate lesson. Because sometimes, the stone they reject truly becomes the cornerstone. And just like that, the farmhouse they mocked became the empire that ultimately buried their greed. What do you think? Did Harper's step-family truly deserve the downfall that came to them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more powerful stories just like this one.